Dear students, hope you are fine and doing good at your homes. Today let me teach you about an important topic, that is blood. Blood is a fluid connective tissue that flows in our blood vessels. It consists of two parts, plasma and the cellular part. It is derived from the embryonic mesoderm. It is a germ layer from which it is derived, and it helps to maintain homeostasis in our body by means of transportation, regulation and protection. As it transports oxygen and carbon dioxide, then it regulates the temperature of our body and the distribution of heat, and also it protects our body as it has the cells inside the blood, which are the important components of the immune system. So the blood has two parts. One is plasma and another is the cellular part. Plasma is the liquid part of the blood. It is a pale yellow liquid, and it makes about 55% of the total volume of the blood. But this plasma, it also contains around 90% of the water and 10% dissolved substances. Now, talking about the cellular part, there are different types of the cells, which are RBCs or red blood corpuscles called erythrocytes, then white blood corpuscles called leukocytes, and then platelets, which are also called as thrombocytes. I would like to discuss them one by one. Now, coming towards the plasma part. So plasma is the liquid part of the blood in which these cells keep floating. Now, plasma, there are, as I told you, that it consists of around 90% of the water and 10% of the dissolved substances. Those 10% of the dissolved substances, they constitute plasma proteins. Mainly they are plasma proteins. And these proteins are like albumins, globulins, and blood clotting proteins. Now, all these plasma proteins, they are manufactured in the liver, except one plasma protein, that is the gamma globulin. That is a type of the globulin that is manufactured by the plasma cells, which are the cells of the immune system. Now, talking about albumins, these are the important proteins in our plasma. They are responsible for the transport of fatty acids. They also maintain the blood viscosity and then osmotic potential of the blood, and they also help in maintaining the water balance between the blood and the tissues. So it is about albumins, and albumins constitute about more than 50% of the total proteins in plasma. Then coming towards the globulins. Globulins is a diverse group of the plasma proteins, like it has alpha 1 globulin, alpha 2 globulin, and then beta globulin, and then gamma globulins. These globulins are manufactured in liver as albumins, but this type, gamma globulin, it's not manufactured in the liver. It is produced by the plasma cells. These globulins, they are responsible for the transport of the fat or cholesterol and the fat soluble vitamins. And once the fat molecules or the lipid molecules get attached with these globulin proteins, they form a complex called the lipoprotein complex. Now, there are two types of the lipoprotein complexes formed in the blood. One is high density lipoprotein complex, which is also abbreviated as HDL, and another one is low density lipoprotein complex, that is LDL. LDL is a bad cholesterol, as it can form the plaques in our blood, and then HDL, it is called the good cholesterol, as it transports the fat to the liver for its disposal. So this was all about the plasma part or the liquid part. So as I have already told you about the albumins and the globulins, then there is the third important component which is present in the plasma of our blood. They are the blood clotting proteins, which are present in the plasma, like fibrinogen. Fibrinogen is one of the important blood clotting proteins, which helps in the blood clotting, and it seals the damaged vessels. Sometimes our blood vessels, they suffer the damage, and and then at that time the blood clotting protein like fibrinogen and then the blood platelets, they come and they play the important role in the blood clotting mechanism. So this was all about the plasma. So you should remember that plasma is the fluid, it is the liquid part of the blood in which the cells keep floating. Now let's move towards the cellular part of the blood. Now coming towards the cellular part of the blood, the cells inside the blood that keep floating in the plasma fluid, they are RBCs, WBCs and platelets. Now RBCs are also called as erythrocytes. There are around 5 million RBCs per cubic millimeter of the blood in males, and in females there are around 4.5 million RBCs per cubic millimeter of the blood in females. So the primary function of the RBCs is to transport oxygen. The oxygen mixes up with the blood inside the lungs at the time of the oxygenation of the blood. That oxygen is actually carried by hemoglobin of the blood. And these RBCs, they cannot divide. These are the cells which cannot divide because they, due to the loss of the cell organelles, they lose cell organelles like nucleus, mitochondria, ribosomes, and other cell organelles. Then they are not able to divide. So they attain a shape of a biconcave disc. That's why it becomes easy for the RBCs to flex and move through the blood capillaries, and even a very fine blood capillaries, they can move easily. Now there are around 250 million hemoglobin molecules in one RBC. So what is this hemoglobin? Hemoglobin is actually a protein. It is an oxygen carrying or oxygen binding protein of the blood, which carries the oxygen, and it even carries the carbon dioxide also and helps in the transportation of the gases. So this hemoglobin, it contains two components. One is the iron part, which is called the heme part, and another one is the protein part, which is called the globin part. Now this hemoglobin, it consists of 4 polypeptide chains, which are around 140 amino acids long, even more than 140 amino acids long. In adults, there are 2 alpha chains and 2 beta chains, but in case of infants, there are 2 alpha chains and 2 gamma chains. Then later on, these 2 gamma chains, they get converted into the 2 beta chains once the infant grows into adult. Now, this oxygen, which is carried by the hemoglobin, it gets binded to the heme part of the hemoglobin. But here you have to remember that there is a difference between the binding of the oxygen and the carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide binds with the free amino groups of the hemoglobin, but oxygen, that binds with the heme part or the iron part of the hemoglobin. Now the age of these RBCs, coming back towards the RBCs, that's around 120 days. After 120 days, they get very much old, and they are buried or in the spleen or in the liver, and even they are engulfed by the macrophages in our body. Macrophages, which are the cells present in our body. Now these RBCs, once the new RBCs are formed, they are formed from the nucleated stem cells, and those nucleated stem cells are called promegaloblastos. These promegaloblastos differentiate into normoblastos and then into reticulocytes and then into the RBCs. Now this production of RBCs, it is regulated by a hormone which is secreted by the kidneys, which is produced by the kidneys, that's called erythropoietin. So erythropoietin regulates the production of the RBCs in our body. Now coming towards the WBCs.